WPIAL Greg Warnock alongside Jeff Upson, and we also have our special guest Troy Hohman joining us as well. Before we get to Troy, Jeff, first and foremost, another crazy, wild POWERade tournament. Lived up to the expectations that we hyped it up for last week, and how you've recovered from what was just a wild weekend.
Yeah, I mean it was a lot of fun. We talked about it before the show. It was a long weekend, but I think we all got through it and we survived. A lot of good wrestling, and like you said, it definitely lived up to the hype because this was probably the toughest POWERade in the history, and that's even without some of the big name guys that we were expecting from Blair and some other folks. So yeah, it was a lot of fun, a lot of good wrestling, and Pennsylvania. We had some tough weights for sure. So it was nice to see some guys get on top of the podium.
Yeah, no doubt about it. And we say weekend, but really it wasn't a weekend, right? It was Wednesday, Thursday. Then we still had the New Year's weekend to kind of relax and reset a little bit. So it definitely fell, I think, in the right spot for the WPIL. Obviously, you mentioned Pennsylvania for the WPIAL. 26 medalists. I guess when you look back and we were talking in the preview, may have expected a little more, but not much. Because of just how deep this tournament was. With all the different top 10 teams, top 50 teams in the nation. It was tough to get a medal. So getting on the award stand 1 through 8, you definitely have something to be proud of from this tournament.
I mean, we said it there at POWERade that there's going to be a lot of guys who medal and Hershey that did not medal at POWERade, just because of the depth of some of these weight classes. So, yeah, I mean, there's no surprise there that some of the best wrestlers in Pennsylvania did not do well. And I think that just shows the depth of really this tournament, especially in some weights. Some weights were bonkers. You look at 172, it was just crazy, So, yeah, I'm excited to talk to Troy about 120 because 120 was pretty crazy as well.
Yeah, it definitely was. Had a lot of, as many people would think, upsets, but I think for Troy, he would say it fell right into place. Troy, thanks for joining us on the show.
Thanks for having me.
Well, you came into this thing seeded, obviously, with your state medal, but I'm sure you didn't expect some of the things to fall the way they did. 1 seed, 2 seed, both coming out of this one, but you came out of this as a POWERade. Talk about your week, leading up to it. Wednesday, Thursday wrestling action. Just a little bit about your tournament, how you felt throughout the tournament.
All right, so I actually right after the plum match, I was out for about a week. I had the flu, so I wasn't really able to work out that much, and I had to keep my weight in check too. So then first workout, I was back on New Year's Eve. I mean, not New Year's Eve, Christmas Eve, up at Stripmatter's house. He had a workout. Worked out Christmas Eve, Christmas Day, and then 26th, 27th, and what POWERade was the 28th, 29th? Or
Yep.
Yeah, so
28th, 20th, yep.
Mm-hmm. So 26th, 27th were basically just getting my weight down. And go out there, weighed in. I went there a day early because I had to watch I watched my teammates at JV POWERade. So we worked out at Canamac. We went back to our hotel, went to bed, woke up, good warm up. And I saw before I went to bed, McGowan backed out of the tournament. So I was like, oh, that's a big name. And so I was like, oh, I thought they were gonna move Vinny up to 1, Ken Williams down to 2, Consiglio, and then me to be a 4 seed. So I was like, oh, I'll rematch with Vinny in the semis. That's what I was thinking. Vinny gets upset by Schweitzer, which was surprising, but Schweitzer's a good wrestler. Had a tough match with Schweitzer, and then warmed up, and then we had to leave. We had to leave for the second day. Went out, got some lunch, came back, and had a tough match with Consiglio. I thought I wrestled good. I felt like the first day I was a little sluggish, a little sloppy, but second day I felt good. I was able to really get my hands moving, my feet moving, and yeah, that was really it. Feels good though.
And then obviously you mentioned you wrestled sluggish, but you still had a big win in the quarterfinals. A guy that Jeff and I talked about in the preview, Asher Cunningham, ends up getting on the award stand as a freshman from State College. But you big win over him, 12-5 in those quarterfinals. Talk a little bit about that match, I guess, first leading into the semifinals.
He was real scrappy. He was. He's real tough for a freshman. I honestly wasn't I wasn't expecting that going in. And he was hard to score on. Like I was getting on good shots, and he was really making me like scramble and work hard for my finishes. He was tough. He was real poised too. He stayed in good position.
And then obviously, like you mentioned, you had Schweitzer in the semifinals. I'm sure, as you mentioned, you're expecting Kilkeary. You're probably preparing in your mind for Kilkeary, and you saw results. Did it make you think twice? Like, okay, I got Schweitzer here and say I got to take him a little more serious maybe than I would have if he hadn't beaten Vinny.
Yeah. I wrestled him twice before. I wrestled Schweitzer twice. It was once in middle school to place states, and once like last summer at dual tournament. So I mean, I had 2 wins over him. So I was like, wasn't say I was like relaxed, but I was like, all right. I mean, I know what I need to do to beat him. It was actually funny. I was getting an interview after my quarterfinal match, and it was right next to Vinny's match, and everyone was going nuts. So I watched him lose like in the middle of my interview.
Yeah, I'm sure it's hard to make you focus throughout the interview with that go inside you. So then on the finals match, when you got into the finals, did you have any nerves at all? Before heading to Consiglio?
No, not really. I mean, I'm already there. Like I'm in the finals. Like I kind of wrestled free because like I have nothing to lose. So I thought I didn't freeze up. I wasn't really nervous at all. I was excited though.
Awesome. Yeah, obviously, and getting that POWERade title. When you look back, obviously now that your senior year, everything you transformed from, right, from your freshman year, you finished slightly above 500, to where you are now, right? I guess looking back at last year, getting a state medal, then getting the offer from NC State, committing to NC State, then now you're a POWERade champion. Just your progression from freshman year to now. Just talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, I will. I feel like my freshman year I was pretty undersized. Like I was weighing like 98, wrestled 106, and there were some studs that year. I remember I lost to Vinny Citrano and like Carter Dabber, like combined at least 12 times.
I counted it before. You lost to Vinny 5 times in 1 year. So
yeah.
5 of your 17 losses were to Citrano.
And I think 4, and then I think I wrestled Carter 4 times.
Right, and Briar Priest too a couple times.
I think 2. So like I only had like 17, and like almost like more than half of them were them.
Yeah.
And Carter was a state champ that year. Briar Priest was a state champ 2 years after that. Vinny Citrano is ranked pretty high in the state. So, I mean, I had some tough competition my freshman year. And my sophomore year, I came back in. I was a little bigger. I was able to actually like be a full 106. Then I got mono. My sophomore year, I was out for like a month and a half. I was able to come back for postseason, and I had a good WPIAL tournament, made the state tournament. Really, I thought I could have placed, but I just ended up not. It was good that I didn't going into quarantine. Just made me work harder, and then worked that whole summer until my junior year. That's probably the hardest I ever worked. From quarantine to my junior year is probably the hardest I ever worked. And then I got my medal. Same thing over and over again. I really lifted hard this summer, tried to get up some weight classes, and I'm here.
And Troy, you said something after the finals when I was interviewing you, and you said, I'm not afraid to lose because I lose all the time. Essentially, is what you said, something like that. And that struck me as interesting because you don't hear many people say, "Well, yeah, I mean, I lose and I'm not afraid to go out there and lose." But your mentality, and even talking to you now, it's just like cool, calm, and kind of collective. Is that something that has your dad played a role in that at all, or where's that come from? Where you're just kind of like, hey, I got really nothing to lose going out here in one of the biggest tournaments in the nation.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I feel like I kind of developed it over time. I feel like it wasn't like he's real intense, and so like I don't know. I feel like I mean I'm intense when I'm wrestling, but before and after, like I mean I'm trying to stay as calm as I can. I know like I was pretty hyped up after my match in the finals, but like before that I was pretty relaxed. I think I just developed it over time. I think just like more I wrestled, more I realized like if I can just relax and stay calm, like it's just a wrestling match, like just wrestle, not to lose or not to win, just wrestle.
I always love watching for your dad, by Troy. But, I've known him for obviously since even when he was coaching at Penn-Trafford as the head coach, and at the POWERade final, there you are on the mat. I see your two coaches. I'm like, okay, his dad's not in the corner. I look a little bit further back. There he is, like basically
On
wrestling a
all
match
fours.
with
Yeah,
you.
that's him.
Yeah,
Bouncing,
it was awesome.
he was bouncing around.
I can remember him watching Troy wrestle in the regional tournament and him just being literally on one knee in the corner the whole time. Like, I mean, yeah, you're right. He's intense, right? So, but you seem pretty like, like I said, calm, cool, and collective. So, that's I kind of joked when I said, do you get it from your dad? Because I didn't think you did, but in talking to you and getting to know you, it seems like NC State was just like the perfect fit for you. It checked all the boxes for you. So tell us a little bit about why NC State was Troy Hohman's fit. What was it about there?
It was definitely one was their team culture. They're huge. They're big on just hard work, just good character, and developing. So like that was like my biggest thing going there. And talking to the team, like every single one of them just had great things. I liked how the team was going. Like they get better, they make their kids better every year. And like I feel like when I go down there, like my team can win a team title for the first time there. So like that was big. Like another one, like I knew my recruiting class was really good going into it. So like I already knew they had Fishback, I already knew they had Finn and Chase Horn and Jackson. And I was like, well, this recruiting class is stacked. Like it'd be a perfect fit, and obviously two of my good friends are going there. Yeah, and I like what Coach Popolizio and Coach Hall and Coach McCall and Kevin are doing down there. I feel like they're real close with their athletes. I feel like the team is really close as well. Like they have a good chemistry down there. Like all the time, like the handful of times I've been down there, they're super close.
And talking to some other guys that are down there, the Hidleys being two of them, and it seems like you're right. It's just like a fraternal bond between the team, and that's pretty cool. So I'm sure that was definitely attractive to you, and coming from an area where you train with the young guns and you kind of have been on these teams with all these guys for many years. It's got to be pretty cool to see some of you guys, all making it to high level colleges, and especially NC State. Let me ask you about your weight, because you had said before you were like a small 106 pounder. You were at 126, came down to 120. What is the weight like for you? Is it, do you have to cut hard? I know you said you were sick before POWERade. Was it, is it a hard cut for you? And do you think you'll stay at 20?
It's not easy, but if I really pay attention to what I eat, like eat healthy, just pound of water, like it's really it makes it pretty easy, like for the most part. I think I'm gonna wrestle 120 this weekend at counties. After that, I'm gonna bump back up to 26 and then drop back down for postseason.
And we talked about this previously, and how hard is it with Vinny Kilkeary there, because you guys are friends, you guys train together, you wrestled him how many times last year, and it's got to be, it's a weird balance and a weird line between, hey, we're friends and we're also training, we train a lot together. Does that make it awkward, or is it just something like, hey, when we go out there, we just wrestle?
Yeah, I mean, it's probably a little bit of both. Like I feel like it's like we do it every day, so it's not like it's like anything new.
Right.
And it's definitely fun though, because like in the room, like it's fun to wrestle with him because we go pretty hard. So it's fun to do that, but also it sucks that you do have to wrestle your friend for like a title or something.
Right. I mean, you guys are in counties, you guys are in the same region, section, like you guys last year, super region, all those tournaments you had to wrestle them in. So I can imagine it gets a little bit old. I mean, even if you're not friends, it still could get pretty old, right?
Yeah, if I wasn't friends with him, I would probably hate wrestling him. Because I wrestled like three times last year.
Right.
And counties, WPIALs, and third and fourth.
Right.
Well, Troy, we appreciate you making some time to chat with us, and congratulations on your POWERade title. And we're excited to see how the senior season finishes up for you.
Thank you guys for having me.
Thanks, Troy. Appreciate it.
Troy Hohman kind of to join us on the show, and I love his story, honestly. And I kind of sometimes forget about how small he was as a freshman, but just to see him continue to grow each year. I mean, he's shown so much growth each and every season, and he talked about it. How much he puts into it in the off season, but to obviously get the state medal last year, POWERade title this year. He's one that I wouldn't want to face when it comes postseason time. That's for sure.
No, and kind of what you said is he has nothing to lose, right? I mean, and we saw that the way he wrestled. It's like he just doesn't have anything to lose when he's out there competing, So that makes it a lot more difficult to face a guy like Troy, because he really just he's fearless in that sense. So it's really cool to see, and I'm excited to see what his season ends up like. So we're if he wrestles against Kilkiri again in the counties, I think it may be a little bit different this time, considering they're now at the you look at POWERade and where they finished. Troy's gonna be ranked higher than him, and Troy's kind of has this edge about him, like, hey, I got something to prove too, right? So it should be a lot of fun, and I'm excited to see it this weekend.
I think we lost you there, Jeff, momentarily.
I think we did, but we got you back here, so I appreciate that. I think we lost you again, Greg. See if we can get Greg back here. Greg's got to work on his internet. We got you back, Greg.
All right.
Hopefully this works this time for you.
I don't know if it's your end or my end this time, because
it might be my end this time. So it's all right. You get a pass on this one. All right.
All right, good, because I got Troy Hohman as a witness.
You do. You do. So. You absolutely do. So I'll finish up my thought on Troy. Yeah. It's just he's fearless, right? He just I'm excited to see him and Vinny potentially wrestle this weekend, because I think he's got a lot of momentum right now rolling into that match. So it'd be a lot of fun to see that.
Well, let's talk a little bit about 120 pounds first, because since we're in this weight class and going through it, obviously the biggest surprise to a lot of folks was Vinny Kilkiri dropping that 2-1 decision to Adam Schweitzer in the quarterfinals, but then also losing in the consolations. Finishing in 5th place. Joe Simone of Waynesburg finishes in 3rd place. And, a lot of people would never expect it if you said, hey, Troy Hohman's going to be a champ, Simone's 3rd, Kilkiri's 5th. The Hohman as a champ is believable. Simone being 3rd, I'd be shocked, especially with Kilkiri finishing in 5th place. So, WPIAL has 3 strong wrestlers here at 120. But to me, I feel like, one, Simone had a great tournament, absolutely phenomenal tournament. How he hasn't beat out Xander Futuros at 126 and had to drop to 120 is shocking to me, since Futuros went 0-2. But Kilkiri just didn't look like himself. I feel like he didn't wrestle a strong tournament.
Yeah, I mean, I would say he didn't wrestle himself, and it was a weird tournament for him, because it was almost like the Jack Russo match all over again, in my opinion. When you looked at how the match progressed and how, he was really trying to work for a stall call. But Schweitzer, shut down, right? He shut him down, and ultimately he was unable to get anything generated out of that. And I think he was kind of banking on a stall call, and ultimately he didn't get it, right? Pushing a guy out of bounds as opposed to taking a shot is there's a difference there, right? So it felt very reminiscent of last year's match against Jack Russo. Schweitzer had kind of a same game plan, and I don't know if that was planned or not, if that was something that they looked at film and said, hey, this is how Jack Russo was able to beat him. Is this this is something that you're going to be able to do? And Schweitzer's a senior. He's tough. Like, he was a state medalist last year. He just doesn't have the accolades and the credentials that a guy like Vinny has. So it was an upset, right? We weren't expecting to see that happen the way it did. But Vinny lost again in the wrestlebacks to Caprella, who Simone then beat. So, from purely a ranking standpoint, you look at it, you're like, all right, well, Troy, Simone, then Vinny in the region. And, to me, that's it's crazy, right? Because Vinny's Vinny, right? It's hard to imagine him not being one of the top guys in the state. But it was 1 weekend. He can put that behind him. And the question I have now is, do you think he stays at 120, or does he go down to 113, 115 now? That to me is the question.
Yeah, and obviously we don't know what he weighs and how that's going to play out with his descent plan and anything else, but I had the same question, honestly. And, 113 seems like a clearer shot for him to, get that state title, his second state title for that, especially with Troy Hohman wrestling so well, Simone looking strong. It's going to be tough in the state. You got Asher Cunningham, who had a great tournament as a freshman for in state college. So there's a number of guys who are going to challenge him. And, if he continues to wrestle that way, where, like you said, where he's just kind of pushing and shoving, it's not going to get it done, to win a state title. But, so it's either he kind of has to kind of look in the mirror and say, hey, how am I gonna get those big wins that I need to get? How can I get those points on the board, or does he drop? That's gonna be a question I guess we'll have to see plays out.
And you talk to some of the top guys in the nation, college or high school, and guys shut down when they wrestle him. Like when you're a state champ and people are trying to wrestle you, and they know what you're trying to do is, they're not going to wrestle you. They're going to stall. They're going to, I'm not saying Schweitzer was stalling. He was being tactical in what he was trying to do, though, right? So,
yep.
You can talk to a ton of different wrestlers at high levels that are, very successful. And, people, they always complain. Well, people don't come after me. People don't wrestle me like they would before. And I think that's something you have to learn to get over and learn to kind of progress through, because for Vinny, that's really what's going to set him apart from winning a state title at 106 to now trying to repeat, after a couple years at different weights. So, he's going to have to go back to the drawing board, and figure it out. But, I hats off to Joe Simone, like you said, for him to come back and finish third. He was a runner-up last year to Vinny, and ends up finishing third ahead of Vinny. So, kudos to him. But also Troy Hohman, guy we just talked to, is, he beat a very tough Asher Cunningham, beat Adam Schweitzer, who was feeling good and wrestling well coming into the tournament, and obviously throughout. But then to beat Jack Consiglio, a nationally ranked guy, a guy who was a Fargo, medalist. He was also a national prep champion. He was a POWERade champion last year. He's really tough, and Troy was calm, cool, and collected, and was able to get a win. So, 120 was a deep weight class here.
Yeah, absolutely. And, like he mentioned, McGowan not being there definitely helped. But, yeah, no doubt. Simone's tournament was definitely incredible. And, especially when I heard that he couldn't beat out Vaturis at 26, I'm thinking, okay, what can we expect from him, making it down to 20? I never would have thought he would have performed as well as he did. So, definitely a clear top three here at 120, or three of the best at 120. And these guys are probably going to go, down to the wire if they all stay at this. Obviously, Homan's going to stay there. Simone is going to be staying at 120. So we'll see if Kilkerry stays and makes it a 3-horse race come postseason. You look at the rest of the tournament, 106 pounds. The WPIAL did not have a medalist, 26 total medalists in all, but several showings where, close to getting on the medal stand at 106 pounds. From Willishell to Kapusta, Senepal, all guys getting some wins, but just unable to get on the award stand.
Yeah, and as you mentioned, we lost 2 in the wrestlebacks there, 2 in the blood round, with Kapusta and Willishell. And both those guys had, 106 was a loaded weight class. You had Louis Gill, who wasn't even the top seed. Cooper Hilton was. That was a good match between Aiden Smith and Adrian Cement from Council Rock North, who upset Cooper Hilton. Cement's the guy who beat Willishell. And this guy's a problem. I got to talk to him and his coaches after that win against Cooper Hilton. And, he's going to be a lot of fun to watch in the next couple years. And certainly, obviously, this year, watching him compete at a high level. And same with Kapusta. Kapusta lost a tough match to a guy from Bergen Catholic, Melamud, and wasn't his best performance, but he bounced back in the wrestlebacks, and ultimately, both those guys were very close to getting on the medal stand.
Yeah, and then even Parker Senepal, he had a guy he's going to face, several times more, in Louis Gill, 5-0 loss to the eventual champ, and then he and Kapusta wrestled in this 5th round of consolations, Kapusta winning 3-0. 113 pounds for the WPIAL. We had Tyler Chappell of Seneca Valley. He finishes in 3rd place. Also, Cooper Hornack of Burrell finishing in 7th place.
I was very impressed with the way Tyler wrestled in this tournament. Coming into it, having that loss to Vinny Kokiri at King of the Mountain, where he went after him, but just ended up not finishing where he wanted to. It's funny to watch Tebow wrestle, because I feel like sometimes when he's on the front side, he sometimes shuts down or clams up a little bit, but then when he has like, quote, nothing to lose, he kind of just goes off, right? And he loses to Tommy Link in a very tough match. Tommy Link is super strong, and I can't believe he's 113. And Link goes on to make the finals. But then Tebow just kind of runs through the wrestlebacks. It's like I kept on looking, and he just kept on winning, right? And he had a rematch with Brandon Wenzel from Montoursville. Those two wrestled at True Power this year, and it was a close match, just like it was in the 3rd and 4th place match. But when I thought Wenzel was wrestling really well too. He got a win over Gage Botero. He got a win over Cooper Hornack. So he was feeling really good. But Chappell was able to come out, finish on a strong note after finishing as a runner-up last year. No shame in finishing 3rd in this bracket, because it was pretty deep.
Yeah, and both Chappell and Hornack wrestled in the consolation round, where Chappell won in the tiebreaker to get to that spot of being able to get all the way to 3rd, where Hornack dropped to 7th. It was a 3-2 tiebreaker win. A couple of guys who were in the blood round lost just shy. Brady Joling, Chartiers Valley, Kai Sheftick, Waynesburg. Both guys 1 win away at 113. Talked about 120 already. 126, one of the many stories of the tournament. Maddox Shaw of Thomas Jefferson, a 2nd place finish, a 5-4 loss in the finals to Vince Bouzakis of Wyoming Seminary, another incredible freshman. Also for the WPIAL, Ethan Lieben of Hempfield finishes in 8th place. But, Jeff, how about Maddox Shaw? Big win over Vincent Robinson of Homewood Flossmoor, Illinois, ranked number 2 in the nation at the time, knocked him off to get to the final.
So, I mean, someone asked me this before. They said, were you surprised by Maddox's performance? And I said, no, I wasn't surprised, but it was just so incredible to watch him beat some very high-level guys and make it look easy, right? I mean, he knocked off 3 WPIAL guys right out of the gate. He beat Regeria from Collinsville, who's not bad. Fatoris loses to Anthony Ferraro from Pine Richland. He pins him in 53 seconds. Then he gets Dylan Coy, who I think was wrestling some of the best that I've seen him wrestle before, and he pins him, right? It's scoreless, and he defensively pins him to make it to that match with Vincent Robinson, as you said. I was Matt's side for that one, and man, like the thing I like about Maddox Shaw is he has such high wrestling IQ. His mat sense is very, very high. He does not, for a freshman, it's very unique to have the IQ that he has on the mat. He looks very just again like a veteran, right? And that showed even in that match against Vince Bouzakis, who, it was a close match, two freshmen going at it, and those two have history. And I interviewed Vince afterwards, and he said, he was like, I thought I was going to take him down in the last 30 seconds. He even said, he was like, I was scared I was going to take him down because Maddox Shaw is just, he always finishes, right? And it was incredible because the talk of the tournament was Dalton Perry, no doubt about it. Dalton Perry is one of the best freshmen in the nation. And when he loses to Vince Bouzakis and Maddox just wins and keeps on winning, it just makes you wonder. You're like, man, like, what's he doing? What's his training like? Because it's clearly working, and he looked really good in doing it.
Yeah, you talk about just some storylines from this bracket in particular. Dalton Perry, as you mentioned, a loss to Bouzakis, and then drops down, and he ends up losing to Devin Magro, a Bishop McCourt. Magro ends up going on to medal, but Dalton Perry doesn't even get a medal at the POWERade tournament. Meanwhile, Dylan Coy, who, like you said, was wrestling great up until this point, loses to Maddox Shaw, drops down, and then loses again to Ethan Lieben, and Lieben's coming home with a medal, and Coy doesn't medal at all. So it was just a wild finish for a couple of big names within obviously the state of PA, and then in particular the WPIAL.
Well, and that's what I love about POWERade is because you get to see some of these guys like Lieben, and you had mentioned it at 113, Brady Joling from Char Valley. Like, these guys are punching out their weight here. These guys are really coming on at a strong time, and they're getting that confidence, right? This is the time to get that confidence. Now, for Dylan Coy, he's been in that situation before. He beat Mac Church and then ended up not making it to the medal round of the state tournament. So, Dylan's he's going to have to do some figuring, kind of like Vinny Kilcarry. He's going to have to go back to the drawing board and, start looking at some X's and O's and figuring out, all right, what do I need to do in order to execute and keep on winning like I know I can? Because we all know the talent's there. Everyone knows that, but it's executing, right? And it's showing up in these big tournaments and getting wins. And, that could be him. Troy Hohman could be him. So maybe it is just maybe not wrestling to lose type mentality. I don't know. But that's something that they're going to have to figure out.
Being a defensive wrestler myself, it's tough to coach out, right?
For sure.
Once you're in that mindset, it's it's very tough to say, hey, I'll just let loose and score. Like, you want to do it in your mind, hey, I'm going to do it, but it's hard to shake. But I think that's where Dylan is right now. He's so tough. On top. As Maddox Shaw showed, Maddox Shaw got the pin, but if not for maybe 5 more seconds, Coy rode him out for the second period, and then Coy's going to have choice to begin the third. So That's how close Dylan Coy was to getting a medal, was riding out those final 5-6 seconds. And that's how he is, sometimes he gets that takedown, sometimes not, but his thought is, I'm going to ride somebody out and then I'm going to score. And it's usually a tight 1-0, 3-0 type match. And, like you said, if he can open up, who knows, lights out for a lot of folks. But it's tough to coach out. Another guy from WPIAL also made it to the blood round, Andrew Binney of Cannon McMillan, up from 106 to 126. But he fell to Magro as well to not be able to get a medal. 132 pounds for the WPIAL, Mac Church of Waynesburg finishes in second place. That drops a 3-2 decision to Nick Bouzakis of Wyoming Seminary. Also, Trinity's Blake Reener finishes in 8th place as well.
Yeah, obviously the story is Mac Church, and not that we, expected this match, because a lot can happen between, being the second seed going against the number 1 seed. But, Mac was a POWERade champion 2 years ago, was a runner-up last year. And, he wrestled the number 2 guy in the state, Braden Bauer from Williamsport, in the quarterfinals, right? And ended up majoring him 13-5. So, yeah, Mac fell to a very tough Nick Bouzakis, but he beat the guy ranked below him by major decision. So we know how good Mac Church is, right? There's no question about that. Blake Riener, on the other hand, he beats him 11-3, but then he comes back, as you mentioned, and starts, tearing off wins and ends up getting into the medal round match and loses to state runner-up Brandon Kletos from Notre Dame GP 3-0 to finish 8th. Nothing to be ashamed about, losing that match, because he beat Callan Bowman from Chestnut Ridge, who was a returning, or at one time a state finalist. He beat him 6-0. So Reiner is a guy who, again, Trinity on the upswing, but how good can you be? You look at Joey Senapal, he wasn't able to get on the medal stand here. Ethan Kolb from Benton wasn't able to get on the medal stand. It was just you had a lot of guys in that tier. Mac Church, Vince Bouzakis for sure up here. But then you had this other tier of folks like Blake Riener that you didn't know how they were going to shake out. And I think he wrestled really well to get on the medal stand.
Yeah, definitely a lot of improvement from Riener, and also, talking about Mac Church and guys who kind of tighten up. He was one we talked about a lot last year. Love to see Mac Church open up. He's tight. When he's tough to score on, but he also doesn't open up his offense. Boy, did he show it. I mean, his offense opened wide up, and you could see why he could be so good, and not even just in the state, but in the nation, because of all the points he put up getting up to that point. I mean, he was down in that semifinal match to Cameron Catrabone 4-0 right out of the gates. Gave up 2 and 2, and you're probably thinking, and I know in my mind thinking, okay, this is gonna be tough for him to come back from, but he did it. He comes back, wins 7-6, and that's after, like you mentioned, that major decision over Bauer. So to me, he can show he could put points on the board and win those big matches. Bouzakis, he's an animal. I mean, he's in a different realm. But to keep he wrestled it smart, kept it close with Bouzakis, and in the end, he was close to being able to win the match. So
yeah, he put himself in a position to win for sure. He
yeah.
put himself in a position, and he opened up, like you said. Last year against Mason Gibson, he wasn't able to open up, and Mason just wrestles at a high pace, so it's hard to do that. But Mac Church was very impressive this year, this POWERade, because he was able to open up and be tactical with how he was, approaching different opponents. And like you said, against Catrabone, he was down. I don't know, I can't remember a time when Mac's been down and he's been able to come back, because normally it's, if he's down, he's losing a match, and
yep.
He's winning 1-0 against Carl Schindeldecker. It's now he's instead of keeping it close against guys he should beat, now he's keeping it close with Nick Bouzakis. So I was impressed with Mac and the way he wrestled.
Some other guys who just missed the award stand, Nathan Monapart of North Allegheny. He actually took Bauer to ultimate tiebreaker. So you mentioned Bauer being highly ranked. Monapart had a good tournament. Also, Chad Ozias of Connellsville, he falls just shy of losing in the blood round as well. So a couple other WPIAL guys who came up just short at 132 pounds. 138, Briar Priest of Hempfield finishes in 3rd place as the lone WPIAL representative here in this weight class.
Yeah, and Briar had that tough match with Pearson Manville in the semifinals. Manville's a guy who's down from 145 to 138, and we all kind of assumed that this was going to be a tight match, and Pearson Manville's a sophomore, and he joins older brother Mason and Carson as the third Manville to win a POWERade title. That was a match that I think Briar wants to have back for sure. Mm-hmm. And, much like we talked about with Mac, I mean, Briar has been, when he's wrestling a guy like Pearson Manville, sometimes it tends to slow down a little bit and not wrestle his style. And I think that's kind of what happened here. I think Pearson was just able to keep him out of his own his style and was able to figure out a way to hang on for that win. So, and then Pearson ends up winning it, right? No shame there. I think these guys are going to battle. I think it could be a state final match, to be honest with you. So, but he bounced back to take third. He beat a very tough Kai Owen from Wyoming Seminary in the Conci semis, and then beat another tough guy, Joe Cangro, in the third and fourth place match. So no shame at all on where he finished.
Speaking of Owen and Kangro, they gave Colton Stone King his 2 losses, and Stone King's loss to Kangro came in the blood round. So Colton Stone King of Waynesburg comes up just shy, as does Jamison Pocliembo of Mount Pleasant. He lost in the blood round as well. 145 pounds, Ty Waters of West Allegheny finishes in second place. Finn Sullivan of Franklin Regional finishing in third. These 2 guys met in the quarterfinals, with Ty Waters coming away with the big 11-4 victory.
I mean, the takeaways from POWERade were, Ty Waters is just, he's fun to watch, right? He's a lot of fun to watch. When he's on, man. I mean, pinned in the first round, pinned in the second round, beats Finn Sullivan 11-4, pinned in the semifinals, and then takes on a very, one of the best wrestlers in the nation with Mayor Shapiro. And, Waters, he had a lot of fun this past week. I really know he did. And for him to come out from a position that he did, right, an unseated position, after his last year's POWERade where he, breaks his knee, breaks his leg in the POWERade tournament, tries to wrestle through it, loses the rest of his season because of the injury. From where he was as a freshman to now, he's really impressive. I'd like to watch him and Finn wrestle a whole bunch of times, and I think they could, to be honest with you.
Yeah.
But yeah, he was definitely one of the biggest breakouts of the POWERade. There's no doubt about that.
And obviously great for Finn, right? The battle back for third place after dropping that decision to Ty Waters, where, that match, although 11-4, I feel like it, was definitely a little bit closer than what the score indicated. But with that being said, Finn battles back. He had a tough 1-0 win over Lucas Capusta to get a medal. And then from there, beats guys like Riley Bauer, Reed Fulmer, Cross Wasilewski. So he had to get some big wins in order to get that third place finish.
Well, I mean, we saw this, what was it, 2 years ago in the region when, he loses to Curtis Phipps and then falls in the consolation round, right? I mean, it's easy to lose after losing one time, right? And he regrouped, he stayed focused, and he came back for third. Again, no shame in that. He's the second seed coming into here. He finishes in third place. He'll get that match back. They've wrestled before. They're going to wrestle again.
Yeah, no doubt, and that's right. You're right in saying that. Thinking about Zach Wright beating him, and a guy who was a state runner-up the year before doesn't even make the state tournament the next year, but shows the improvement he's made and how much he's grown to be able to come back after a tough loss and make it all the way back for third. Mentioned Lucas Capusta. He was the only other WPIAL wrestler in the blood round who came up just shy from getting a medal at 145 pounds. 152. How about the tournament for Keelan Laffey of Pine Richland? He finishes in third place. Also, Nico Taddy of West Allegheny finishes in 8th place.
Laffey really impressed me. And he's been impressive throughout his career, but, I almost compare it to like Enzo Merlocki from Kiski, where these guys, they don't have the state qualifier or state medal next to their name, but they're right there in the mix and they can beat high-level guys. And Kellen did that this past week when, he came out from an unseeded position to finish in third place, right? And he had a phenomenal tournament knocking off some high-level guys. He beat Jack Pletcher from Latrobe, who we know is tough. He beats Andrew Christie, who had just beat Dylan Evans. So Dylan Evans came into this tournament, riding a high wave, man. I mean, his only loss was to Jackson Arrington, Fargo third, Super 32 fifth. He loses to Kunstek from Blair in an early round, and then, was unable to get back and get onto the podium. But, for Laffey, this is huge. This is huge for him. He gets a win over Evan Mag, a state medalist from Notre Dame Green Pond. And, I just, sky's the limit for Laffey. And if he continues to wrestle the way he does, and, to be honest with you, I think he could potentially go down to 47. I don't think he was overly big for 52. So he could certainly be dangerous wherever he goes. But this POWERade tournament showed how good he is, and really why he is ranked as high as he is in the state.
Well, you look at his tournament as well. The eventual champion, Joe Seeley of Wyoming Seminary, this was his toughest test. Seeley had a tack, a fall, a default win, and then a major decision in the finals. But against Laffey, it was 7-5 win.
Right.
So he gave him his toughest match. Jackson Arrington obviously makes it to the semifinals, but then he had to default out due to injury. So not having him there was definitely a tough to say. Where things could finish, but Laffey finishing his third place and beating Pletcher, like you mentioned. But look at just the if everybody stays at 152, how tough it's going to be here in AAA. You got Dylan Evans, Jack Pletcher, Keelan Laffey, Nico Taddy, Chase Kranitz. All of those guys were in that blood round match, and Laffey and Taddy were the only two to end up getting a medal. But those are 5 incredible wrestlers, all at 152.
I said this. I said Taddy's back, man. Like, watching Nico Taddy wrestle was a lot of fun this week. Or I keep on saying weekend. This week, it feels like it was the weekend. I don't really know what day it is anymore. But Taddy had a good win over a tough Nathan Rickards of Malvern Prep, who's no slouch. He beats him 10-3 before beating Jack Pletcher 8-2, and then getting tech followed by Jackson Arrington. Jackson Arrington, completely different level. We know that. And Nico wasn't feeling his best from what I was told, and he still was able to find a way to get a fall over Ernest in the blood round, and then loses that match to Mag, and then goes to the ultimate tiebreaker with Andrew Christie. So as you mentioned, if everyone stays where they're at at 152, it's going to be a problem. It's going to be a big problem for some of these guys, because there's going to be some really good guys that don't make it to the state tournament and don't make it on the medal stand, even though they would had they been in another region.
Yeah, absolutely. 5 of the best in the state, all right here in the WPIAL at 152. So we'll see if there is any movement as we get closer to the postseason. 160 pounds, Jared Kessler of Connellsville finishes in 4th place. Sean Taylor of West Allegheny in 6th place. Enzo Morlocki of Kiski in 7th place. And the top seed, Grant McKay of Laurel, unfortunately had to default out prior to the quarterfinals starting. But strong showing at 160 for the WPIAL.
Yeah, and again, we had some rematches. We had Enzo Morlocki and Jared Kessler going at it again. Morlocki is a guy who beat Kessler at the Eastern Area Tournament this year. Kessler bounces back to finish 4th after losing, in a match that I would say, he was in before he got pinned by Lorenzo Norman. Norman's really tough, right? We know that he's from Blair, but Kessler was in the match before the fall, and then he comes back to take 4th, and ultimately I wish we would have been able to see Grant McKay, because I think him and Holden Garcia would have been a really good match, and I think this would have been a good test for McKay to see where he's at against some high level competition. But the story for me was Sean Taylor from West Allegheny, and really. People forget he's a sophomore, right? And last year, in that shortened COVID season, he had a good year, but it certainly wasn't great. And he just has a phenomenal POWERade tournament coming out and picking up wins left and right. He beats Dom Federici from Wyoming Seminary, who we know is very tough, and then beats Ty Chittum and before falling to Hayes. So, I thought he had a great tournament. And again, you look at the depth. There's just a lot of depth here at 160 in the WPIAL.
Moving on to 172 pounds, we talked about this being probably the most difficult weight class, and obviously they're all challenging, don't get us wrong, but 172 was the deepest with an amount of nationally ranked guys all going at it. And it did not disappoint. In the finish, I think no one would have guessed the order that it ended up coming in. Rocco Welsh of Waynesburg finishes in 3rd place, and he beats Rune Lawrence of Fraser 4-2. So Lawrence comes in 4th. But it was just a wild 172. Top seed Gabe Arnold and number 2 seed Rocco Welsh, the guys who were expected to wrestle in the final. They wrestle in the consolation semifinals, Welsh winning there by tiebreaker. but Welsh was upset by Michael Delagata in the quarterfinals. Lawrence loses to Daniel Wask 5-4, who ends up finishing in second place. But overall, Welsh and Lawrence did not disappoint, finishing third and fourth. But it was a wild 172.
Yeah, I mean, wild's that's one way to put it, man. It was crazy, right? 172 here was just absolutely bonkers. And you look at Gabe Arnold, the number one guy in the nation, loses to Danny Wask from Blair after he beats Rune Lawrence. I mean, and then let's not forget Braden Thompson comes out and beats him. Braden Thompson from Illinois is the 6th seed, comes out, he majors Matt Furman, beats Luke Gorg, then beats Delagata, who had just beat Rocco Welsh, and then an ultimate tiebreaker is able to beat Wask. I mean, Thompson had a great tournament, right? But a few key points that I want to mention. Rune Lawrence, he wrestled Wask tough, and he was right in that match, right? I would have liked to see Rune Lawrence versus Gabe Arnold, but instead we got Rune Lawrence versus Rocco Welsh, which was a great match, right? Rocco bounces back from losing that match to Delgado, where I was surprised he lost that match, to be honest with you. Just watching it, I thought he looked like he was in control, and I don't think he practiced very good match management this past week. I think he let his emotions take control a little bit. I think he got into a couple shoving matches with a lot of the guys he was wrestling with, and it just wasn't. It didn't look like Rocco, right? I mean, I don't know what it is and what's going on, but I think he just, his emotions were running a little bit high, right? But he's able to get, 2 huge wins, right? Even though that you lose to Delgado, he comes out, beats the number one guy in the nation after winning the Ironman. Gabe Arnold missed weight. He didn't get a chance to wrestle him. He beats him now in POWERade and then beats Rune Lawrence. But Rune Lawrence pins the number 2 guy in the state, Nolan Lear, who's very good, right? Nolan Lear's not a slouch whatsoever. Rune Lawrence pins him in 1:41 and makes it look like nothing. That's the number 1 versus number 2 guy in the state, So again, the difference between where Rune's at, I mean, it's insane. 172 was just completely nuts, and I don't think I would have picked it to be Thompson, Wask, Rocco, Rune, and then Gabe, and actually Delgado finished ahead of him because Gabe Arnold defaulted. So, really strange finish here at 172, but it definitely lived up to the hype.
Yeah, Lawrence wrestled great. He really did. And he also had a pin in the blood round over Matthew Furman of Cannon McMillan. So Furman 1 win away from getting on the award stand. But yeah, you're right about Rocco. I mean, he definitely, in watching his matches, I think every match he ended up in a shoving match of some sort, whether it was in the match or at the end of the match. The only one I didn't see him have that was with Rune Lawrence. And I kind of mentioned it's probably because they're so familiar with one another, right? They practice with each other a lot. They've wrestled each other a lot. They're friendly. So that's probably why that didn't happen in that match. But yeah, if he can control his emotions, Rocco Welsh is one of, if not the best in the nation. So that's something, obviously if he can keep that in check, then no one can beat him. And hopefully he can, be able to do that, because I know, he's come up just shy of winning that state gold, and that he wants nothing more. So in order to do that, you're absolutely right. He's going to have to keep that in check. 189 pounds, Max Stout of Mount Lebanon joins his brothers, Kellen and Luke, to win a POWERade title. He finishes in first place. Also in the WPIAL, strong showing at 189. Brian Finnerty of Thomas Jefferson finishes in third. He beats Patrick Cutchember of Quaker Valley, who finishes in fourth via tiebreaker. And a good tournament for Brody Evans of Waynesburg, finishing in seventh place.
Yeah, I mean, Brody Evans has really come on strong in this year. I was very impressed with him. He's a junior, and he comes out, he beats George Schultz, and makes it to the quarterfinals, loses to eventual runner-up Jude Carrera from SEM, who's really freaking good for a freshman. He had Max Stout. He gave everything he had at Max Stout. Max Stout's able to get a win. I think Carrera is a guy we're going to be hearing a lot of on the national level for quite a number of years here. But as you said, this was 189 was probably the strongest showing of any WPIAL, of any weight class for the WPIAL here, with Finnerty finishing third and Kutchember fourth, and those two wrestled a tiebreaker, and I think they could wrestle 10 times, and at least 6 of them are going to be all in tiebreaker, right? And even Giuliano Marino from Marion, I'm sorry, from Franklin Regional, Kutchember beat him 3-2. That was a close match, so he beat, Giuliano beat George Schultz in the round right before that, and then Kutchember beats him. So Kutchember, I thought, wrestled really well. And Brody Evans, again, you look at matchups and you look at where he's at compared to where he was before. Gabe Stafford from Cannon Mac beats Joey LaPena from Notre Dame GP, who's really good. Then Evans beats Stafford 4-2 in sudden victory. I mean, Evans is a guy who I never would have expected would have finished top 8 here at 189. Just looking at Double A, you got Landon Caldwell, Danny Church, and some of those guys. I don't think I mentioned Evans on the preview show, and then shame on me, but he proved us wrong.
And that's great for that Waynesburg lineup, because you're replacing some big guys like a Luca Augustine up in those heavier weight classes. To have Evans stepping up and being able to, be an anchor in those heavier weights is huge for Waynesburg's chances to repeat not only in the WPIAL but as well as in the state. So big tournament for him and a good coming out party to propel him for the second half of the season. You mentioned Marion and Stafford, both those guys losing in the blood round, so coming up just shy of a medal. 215 pounds, Dayton Pitzer of Mount Pleasant pinned his way to the finals before wrestling a nationally ranked opponent, TJ Stewart, and he has to go the distance in one match, and that's to get gold. He goes to a tiebreaker to win his championship here at 215 pounds. He's the only WPIAL wrestler to medal.
Yeah, I mean, we needed this. We needed to see where Dayton Pitzer was, because he was just, outside of Feldman last year, he has not had any competition that was able to hang with him, right? I mean, he dominated his way to a state title last year, and besides those 2 losses to Nick Feldman, no one really pushed him. No one really tested him. And now we get that shot with him and TJ Stewart, who, Stewart's one of the best in the nation, right? I mean, he's going to Virginia Tech. He's considered one of the top 10, in the class, and he's just a very accomplished wrestler. And Dayton Pitzer was able to come out and win a very smart match. He gets the reversal in tiebreaker 2. He does a phenomenal job of just, breaking somebody's will to compete, and he's so long. Even a guy like TJ Stewart, who is massively strong, Dayton's able to figure out a way to slow him down, to use his length and use his leverage to his advantage and get that reversal. His top game is what won him that match. The way he was able to ride out and ride tough on top. Stewart had the only takedown of the match, and it didn't matter, because Pitzer was able to win, and get that reversal when it mattered. So this was huge for Dayton. And I know he's excited because, this really, he doesn't compete a whole lot in the off season against, like Fargo or some of these big national tournaments. So this was huge for him to get that win.
Yeah, honestly, you worry a little bit about Dayton, because prior to that, he had 4 matches, and I think the total time was like 3 minutes and 48 seconds. He ends up winning the most falls award for the tournament, and doesn't get out of the first period in any of those 4 matches. And that's, big wins, against solid opponents, Josh Sarasnik, Nick Pavlechko, and he pins them all in the first period. So you wonder, okay, you go from that to now having to wrestle into 2 minutes of overtime. How's your conditioning going to be? How are you going to be able to hold up? Not that he's not in great shape, because he is, but he just hasn't had to wrestle 6 minutes, let alone 7 or 8. But he looked great, like you mentioned, and looked phenomenal wrestling on top, and definitely was a good showing for him. And, from here on out, the question is he going to go 6 minutes? Because he well, like you said, he doesn't really get challenged.
Yeah, that's the question. And, it's funny you say that, because I asked him that in the interview. I actually was interviewing him when they were calling him up for the most falls and least amount of time award. And I was like, just hold on, guys. We got to finish this interview. And one of the things I asked Dayton was, like, how are your lungs? Because you haven't wrestled a 6-minute match. And he didn't take offense to it, but he was just like, I'm in great shape, and he basically said, like, I wrestle 10-minute matches all the time in the room, like, and Coach Waller's standing behind him, like yelling at him, and like he's a hoot. But Dayton, we don't see that in the room, right? We just see him go out and pin guys in the first, second period, tech fall guys, and not really wrestle past 4 minutes. So how is your gas tank? Well, he showed it. And I'm not saying that we won't ever see him go the distance again, but I don't know. He pinned the number 2 guy in the state at the Panther Holiday Classic in like the second period. So I don't know if we will see him go the full distance again. But some other guys that I was impressed with, Josh Page from Norwin, I thought he wrestled really well. He beat Aiden Buggy from North Allegheny, and then had a tough match with Corey Barrero from Latrobe, who he loses 1-0 to him. Barrero falls in the blood round here. And, it's, again, 215, a little bit more wide open. Sarasnik from Char Valley beats Carter Diltz, who's a 7 seed, and gets in the quarterfinals, but then falls to Rowe, who knocked off like all the WPIAL guys. He beat Makel, he beat Sarasnik, he beat up a few WPIAL guys here. So, but overall, I thought, good tournament for a guy like Josh Page.
Yeah, absolutely. 285 pounds for the WPIAL. Ty Banco of Trinity finishes in 4th place. Noah Tustin of Waynesburg in 6th place. And I thought it was a really great tournament for Ty Banco. He and Tustin did wrestle in the consolation semifinals. Banco went in for a headlock. Tussin went in for a bear hug. And it was Banco who comes out on top, gets the fall in 28 seconds. But overall, it's a great tournament for both guys, but Banco really impressed.
Yeah, it's funny because, he tried that same headlock against Nick Feldman, and it didn't work. Nick Feldman pins him in 52 seconds. But look, Ty Banco had a phenomenal tournament. I mean, he beat Leo Mazuka from Faith Christian Academy, who's number 2 in the state, and AA, pins him in 40 seconds. Yeah, he loses to Nick Feldman, but man, like he bounced back, right? He comes out, gets a win over Noah Tustin by fall, and then battles Riley Robel from Bishop McDevitt. DJ Moring, a former McKee Sport wrestler, is now at SEM. He loses to Noah Tustin, so he finishes in 8th place. So you look at the way it all shook out, right? I would have to say Ty Banco is pretty, should be pretty happy with where he finished.
Yeah, absolutely. And yeah, you mentioned everybody loses the Feldman, right? So you might as well just go big or go home, and he definitely tried that for sure. Overall, great tournament. Obviously, Feldman comes out with the Outstanding Wrestler Award, and obviously, as far as the team perspective goes, no one was going to be able to touch Wyoming Seminary, who just absolutely obliterated the field. But from then on out, Waynesburg finishes in 6th place. Connellsville finishes in 10th place. Thomas Jefferson finishes in 12th place. Cannon McMillan also finishes in 12th place. So Penn-Trafford, number 20. So all within the top 20 at POWERade for the WPIAL are those teams. And it was a great tournament. And, we'll just see what Frank Volcano has in store for next year. But overall,
yeah, I mean, we had the fire,
the drum line.
The drum line, which was awesome. Like, I mean, I wanted to tell Frank, like, don't overdo it, because next year you're gonna have to top it, so like, what's it gonna be next year? Are we gonna have someone like coming in on like a paraglide or something? I don't know. It's gonna be fun. But yeah, Frank does a great job, and hell of a tournament, and like you said, I don't know how you top it, to be honest.
Yeah, well, I mean, I think because last year the whole goal was just we need to have this tournament happen. It wasn't necessarily about the glitz in the show.
No, it definitely wasn't.
It's like, hey, I got to make up for last year. So, like, hey, the sparklers were last year's thing, and I just finally got to do them this year. This year's the drumline thing, so just wait for next year, kind of thing. It's like every year he's adding something to it.
Right.
In addition to adding teams and adding talent. So it's definitely incredible for sure. couple other tournaments that happened as well. The Steve DiAgostino tournament actually ended up just being more of like a dual meet where Highlands wrestled pretty well. Southmoreland tournament, meanwhile, some really good individual performances and some good matchups. Troy Hohman mentioned Vince Citrano of Plum, and he had a really strong matchup in the finals against Kyle McCullum of Best Center, and he took the victory, a 4-3 win for Citrano. So a big championship for him.
Yeah, it's funny because you said that was before POWERade and it finished up before that, and yeah, it was a fun, little finals there because you had Anna Malovich from Butler in the finals. She had a tough match, loses in the finals after pinning her way there, and like you said, Vince Trano, good win for him, right? All around, it was, Southmoreland doesn't get quite as much as, obviously, it doesn't get nearly as much attention as POWERade does, but it always has a nice few weights, and I don't think this year was any different.
Yeah, usually, I mean, I think the field has probably gotten a little bit weaker just because, some of those teams have come to POWERade, but still have some strong teams, with Butler being there, Best Center, who's got a really strong team. But then you have the likes of like Peters Township, Plum, Elizabeth Forward. So you get those individual performances, but you had Tyler Barish, a Best Center, Trevor Pettit, a Best Center, also winning titles, Levi Donnell of Butler, William McChesney and Christian McChesney, both getting titles for Greensburg, Salem, Anthony Govern for Southmoreland. So, just overall for the WPIAL, and Tony Walker of Plum, he drops a 2-1 decision to Trevor Husick of Tussey Mountain for second, and that was a good matchup as well. So some great individual performances. And when you look ahead to this weekend, Jeff, it's pretty much county weekend, right? We got 3 county tournaments that we're going to be looking at this weekend. You got the MAC tournament, which is essentially the Beaver County tournament. You got the Tri-County tournament, which will take place at Cannon-McMillan, where you have Washington, Greene, and Fayette all doing battle. And then obviously you have the Westmoreland County tournament, which is at Kiski, and that's a lot of fun as well to see. The MAC tournament, I believe, is at Ambridge High School. So 3 great county tournaments for local wrestling here in WPIAL this weekend. And then you also have the one big tournament, the Midwinter Mayhem, which I believe North Allegheny's at this weekend. So some good wrestling coming up right after, great holiday tournaments.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, this is county weeks, and I'll actually be at Midwinter Mayhem up at the Blair County Convention Center streaming the matches there. We're going to be doing the quarters, semis, and medal round matches there. And as you mentioned, North Allegheny is going to be there. Pretty loaded field for sure. You guys got like Daniel Boone and Quakertown coming in, Athens, Brookville, Fort LaBeouf, General McLean. So it should be a good tournament there.
We always talk about Westmoreland County being, almost as good as a state tournament just because of how deep that county's been over the years. It should be no different this year. And, Tri-County, I'll actually be at Tri-County this weekend for WJPA covering that one. So we'll have some good coverage as far as, knowing what's going on. And we'll be back next week to recap it as well as starting to look ahead to some matches, seeing some dual meets and seeing some good ones coming up.
For sure.
Well, want to thank Troy Hohman, Penn-Trafford, for joining us, and congratulations to him on winning his POWERade title. And Jeff, looks like we're 0 for 3 on making it a full show without any interruptions. So we got to figure something.
I think this time it was my end. So I mean, I'll take full responsibility for that. I'll do better. I'll need to release a statement. Stating that we failed them, and it wasn't quite Oklahoma State, Penn State, but it was the WarUp on the WPIAL. So, we'll try to do better for the future. And I think this one
I got
was
the blame.
bad.
I got the blame for the first 2, but we also had Troy Hohman here to confirm it wasn't my end. So now I'm just starting to wonder, were those first 2 totally my fault because I didn't have a witness here to say it was my end?
Well, I think I mean, you're right. It's just because I do podcasts with other people and I never have problems with it, so like maybe my line of thinking was, well, I'm doing it with Greg and it's not working, but I've done it with Dustin Hawkinsmith and Mitch Rupert and it's fine. So like, why would it just do it now? You know, so that's my line of thinking. I'm not just coming at you because I don't like you. I mean, I know we have our ups and downs, Greg, but yeah, I mean, today was definitely my fault, no doubt about it. Troy's a witness.
I know you moved further away just so that way then in case we have these differences, we can't just come, duke it out, right? No, we're too far away to do that.
I definitely ran. I definitely ran from you. I mean, how many years did we do the MSA show in the same studio every week, and you came to my house? Oh, hey, it is what it is. We can still do the show and do it well, even from a distance.
That's right. That's
Hashtag
right.
New normal.
Yes, thank you, COVID. Well, yeah, definitely look forward to recapping next week, and looking forward ahead as we dive right in now. Now that we're through the holidays, it's all wrestling now, and we look forward to bringing you wrestling action over the next couple of months. And make sure you stay with us on PA Power Wrestling, as we're going to have rankings and updates and stories and you name it. We have it all right here for you. For Jeff Upson, I'm Greg Warnock. Thanks for watching into WarUp on the WPIAL.